Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up for the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Curry, one-on-one. Irving puts it up. It's good. Kyrie Irving from downtown. The three, steps back, crossover, puts up a three. Rebound James. Second. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again. The Cavaliers are NBA champions.
Cleveland, this is for you.
What's going on, Cavs fans? Welcome to another edition of The Block, The Shot, The Stop, a Cleveland Cavaliers podcast brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Skylar Wepker, along with Kevin Lynch and Tim Daniels. And guys, we're here to talk about the Cavs' latest victory over the Golden State Warriors. What were your guys' thoughts on this game? I know we kind of started sloppy and then really turned it around going out of the half. Kevin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, Cavalanche. The key to the game was the second quarter going into like middle of the third quarter. The Cavs held Golden State to 11 points in the second quarter and then came out of halftime and lengthened the lead. I think it got as big as 26, 28 points in the third quarter. And really, the topic that we almost never talk about deserves to be talked about today was the Cavs defense. I thought they were like swarming last night. I don't know if it was something about that Golden State team. They just don't like Draymond, or they don't want to see Steph have a game or something. But like, that was probably as good of a defensive performance as I think they've had in a while.
Yeah, I would agree. Tim, what would you say?
Yeah, obviously the defense part was fantastic. I thought, especially considering they couldn't score for a really long stretch there at the end of the first going into the second, like Kevin mentioned. Just the way they kind of swarmed. They really took care of Steph Curry in a way that not many people can anymore. They held the Golden State to 11 points in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Do you know how hard it is to score 11 points in an NBA quarter? It's nearly, I wouldn't say it's nearly impossible, but it's just about. And so they were on top of it. I thought that they were great. We say this every episode now, but another awesome Darius Garland game where he kind of controlled the pace, controlled the tempo of the game. And, that was the Steph Curry matchup. And I thought realistically, for the majority of the time when he's guarding him, I thought he did really well. Mitchell obviously had another one of those really insane stretches between the second and third quarter where he just was Donovan Mitchell. And the other thing that was really nice in this win streak, it's the first game in the win streak. They didn't need Evan Mobley to do too much. It was just kind of keep them off the glass, and we'll take care of everything. And the bench is kind of like a lot of small digit scoring, but everyone scored but Jalen Tyson. And Jalen Tyson obviously got in the 4-minute mark when they brought in the rest of the backups. But I thought the bench defensively too really stepped in and did a great job. George was really good defensively. Ty Jerome was really good defensively. It was just a really nice performance overall, especially to start of a back-to-back. You kind of get that game from those guys.
Yeah, you brought it up. The keeping them to 11 points in that quarter, that's really hard to do to any NBA team, but especially an NBA team like the Warriors that are just historically known to be 3-point centric team. That holding to such a small amount there really, really changed the shift of the game, because we started this game super sloppy. Turnovers galore, couldn't buy a basket. I want to know what Kenny Atkinson said in the halftime, because they came out like a completely different team after that.
No, you're right. And, something I want to bring up, and Tim started bringing up Darius. So for a very long time, everyone has considered, rightfully so, Steph Curry to be the best conditioned athlete in the NBA, maybe in the world. Like, the guy just runs and runs and runs all the time and works so hard to get open shots and everything. I kind of think Darius is kind of becoming a Steph Curry light in that manner, because he, last night, especially and he's doesn't do 100% of the time, but more often than that, he's becoming very active defensively. He's, picking guys up further up into full court. He is just bouncing around all over the place and never really seems to be breathing too hard. So I was watching Darius, and you're right, Tim, I was a little surprised that they had him matched up against Steph as much as they did, but he was chasing Steph all around the court and kind of matching him, stride for stride in a lot of ways. And I don't know. It's something I hadn't really considered with Garland to this point this year, but it's something I really noticed last night.
They've been training together too for a couple off seasons, so I wonder.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, like but right before Garland's All-Star season, Curry came out and basically like sang his praises and was like, this guy's gonna take off. And
I mean, it's incredible that they held Steph Curry to 11 points last night.
Yeah.
I mean, three from 11 from the 3-point line from Steph Curry. That's
unfortunately for him, though, with the roster that Golden State's put together around him, he's having a lot more of those games. And like, I hate to say it, and Kevin and I talk about this a lot. Like, there's very few people we love to watch play basketball more than Steph Curry. And I know Cavs fans might hate us for that, considering the mid 2010s. But yeah, he's having a ton. I mean, last year he had 4 or 5 single-digit games because he's like, it's a lot of, and Klay Thompson was hurt, obviously, and there's no Klay Thompson now, but it's a lot of just kind of just don't let Steph beat you games. And you get those Christmas Day spectaculars like him and LeBron just had, but then you're getting a lot of those games from last night too. But he's still so good that the stats are still just beautiful to look across if you look at the back of the basketball card.
Yeah, I mean, other than last night, I mean, 3 assists and 11 points. That's not really getting it done. And obviously, assist is hard. There are more factors in assists because not only do you have to distribute correctly, the other guy's got to make the shot, and that was not Golden State at all last night. Holding them to under 100 points is incredible. So one thing that I want to mention is when going on Darius Garland. The way that he creates his shot is so amazing. He doesn't play to a rhythm. He's so erratic in his movements and gets a defender off timing just with all the just jab steps and popping and locking. Like he looks like an Australian breakdancer out there, just trying to create a shot. It's awesome.
Yes, there's that. And I think the one thing, so I talked about one of my favorite things to talk about with Mitchell that does really well is the long rebound. I guess I'm going to dub Garland the best in the league at this one little silly thing. It's the driving to the rim and dropping the ball into the dunker spot. I don't know anyone that's doing that better than him, where Jared Allen is basically just like sometimes not even a tentative and the ball's just in his hands and he gets a dunk. He did that quite a few times last night. He's done it quite a bit throughout the season with this new offense. He's just become such a good distributor. And I know he's not getting 13, 14 assist games out there anymore, but these 5 to 8 games he's having where he's having plays like that are making all the difference to this offense.
Yeah, I would agree. That is the other thing that we've seen all this season is just the way the ball moves with this Cavs team. Yeah, I was watching and trying to just count. And on average, there are 4 passes per possession.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times it's even more than that. And it really is great. And it's all led, honestly, by Darius and Donovan Mitchell, because they're the ones who start out with the ball in their hands on almost every possession. They're the ones that start out with the ball. So, for any of that to start, for all this beautiful ball movement have to start, they have to kind of like dictate it, right? So it's really incredible. And I agree with Tim's point about like the drop up passes from Garland. He is fantastic at that. And I thought he came out this season during like the 15-game win streak and was doing so much of that. And that's when Jared Allen was averaging 17, 18 points a game, a lot from his partnership with Garland. And then it kind of lagged a little bit for a little while. I think a lot of that's because defense has adjusted or whatever, and that was taken away a little bit more. But now you're right. During this, now we call it second significant win streak of the season. It seems like he's getting back to that. He is breaking down defenses instead of just looking to kick out for threes. He is finding Jarrett, down low once again.
Is it too early? I mean, I said it way early in the win streak, the first win streak, but is it too early to start thinking about a wire-to-wire year?
Nope.
Not now. We're almost halfway to the season.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're past Christmas and they're still doing this. We're past Christmas and they have 4 losses. I mean, that's pretty
5-game lead on the Celtics.
That's the biggest thing. That is the biggest thing about this, because we talked about that quite a bit this year, just in the sake of build as much balance, difference between you and the Celtics. Because if it comes down to that case where you play them for a shot at the finals. You want that game at the Q. And
Absolutely.
right now, it's looking like that game's going to be at the Q if things keep going the way they are.
Well, you did, and we'll talk about other teams later, but like it's not just the Celtics. Like the several other teams in the East are trying desperately to catch up to the Cavs and can't, but they are catching up to Boston. Like Knicks are only a half game behind them now for the second spot. And so yeah, you're stretching it out against Boston, but like at the same time, Boston's lead against the rest of the East is shrinking because of their recent struggles. So I don't think wire to wire talk at this point, barring something catastrophic or a completely unexpected huge decline in play, like I don't think that's unrealistic to talk about at all.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I actually think this kind of leads into my next point. I think this Cavs team gets better in the sense of once Max Strus gets his shooting back underneath him, this team is unbeatable. There were several plays last night where I know that the box score, he was 1 for 6, but all 6 of those shots were wide open. He did not take a contested shot at all. So once he gets his shooting form under him, like that's another weapon on this team.
Yeah, I think Donovan Mitchell is really the only one who takes contested threes in this team, and he's one of the better 3-point shooters in the league. Forget about percentages. So like, it's fine that he does sometimes, but like the rest of the team, the majority of their threes are clean looks because of the ball movement, the penetration, the threat of Mobley and Allen inside. We talked about that, Skylar, with Zach on the NBA Weekly. Is I think they have very good shooters on this team, but that's not the biggest reason that they're the number one 3-point shooting team in the league. It's because of the quality of 3-pointers they get. And I would rather take a very good shooter getting a wide open 3 than a great shooter shooting one, after crossing up and being off balance and shooting from 28 feet. The quality of 3-pointers because of the efficiency and the cohesiveness of the offense is, I think it might be the biggest thing that separates the Cavs offense from most of the other offenses in the league.
Yeah. I completely follow up on Kevin with that. Sorry, I didn't know we were going with that. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of the big jump there as well. And I think for 2, just like you guys mentioned it, and we've preached it all year, just their innate ability to make the extra pass is so underrated for this team.
Yeah, and
I think that's something where you really haven't seen that from a Cavs offense since like LeBron and Kyrie, where it was just kind of having those open guys, and they had the JRs and the Shumps and those guys like that who could have the quick release. But with the way that this team moves the ball around, and literally last night only one guy didn't take a 3, and it's the guy you don't want taking 3s.
Jared Allen.
Yeah, exactly. So and everyone made a 3 that took one last night except for JT Thor, but you'll live with that one, obviously, with the sake of the game when he's in. So just their ability to kind of keep people spaced out. That's what modern NBA is, right? It's just kind of that 5-out offense. And the way that they run the offense they run compared to everybody else, it almost sometimes looks leaps and bounds above them. But maybe it's also just because we're still comparing it to what the offense looked like last year in stretches.
Yeah, it definitely could feel like that, though. This is just a completely different system. It is a completely different system, but with the comparison to the JB Bickerstaff of the past couple of years to what we're seeing now, it's just so refreshing to see.
Hey man, that might be round 1. You mentioned earlier talking about just beating the Celtics. They might be playing the Pistons round 1.
That's all right with me.
Yeah, me too.
I'm trying to think of where I want to kind of follow up with this. But we're getting closer to the trade deadline. I don't think the Cavs do anything. What can you do? This team's humming on all cylinders. You're on your second major win streak of the season. You have the best record in the league. You're first in basically every statistical category other than free throws. That's something that you can work on. What do you guys think they do?
I see both sides of this argument because nothing you said is wrong, Skylar. They have been the best team in the NBA this year, and things are going well, and the vibes are fantastic. And so why would you want to mess with that? At the same time, I'm somebody who's watched so many NBA playoffs to know that the game changes so much in the playoffs, how much it slows down, how much it gets more physical, how much the, best player, the rotations shrink and the best players play increased minutes and everything. So I'm of the mind that the Cavs make one move for a big wing for defensive, partly to fill a need with, defensive and everything, and partly because a lot of the guys that play that position for the Cavs are super valuable, but also super injury prone. Dean Wade, Max Strus, Karis LeVert. I think you get one more guy kind of in their mold. I honestly thought Dorian Finney-Smith would have been a great one for them. Like the grand slam trade would be Herb Jones, getting Herb Jones from the New Orleans
Didn't even think about that.
because he has turned into an excellent 3-point shooter and one of, if not the best league defender in the league. It's really him and Dyson Daniels are the best wing defenders in the league. So like that's the one guy that I'd be willing to, give up. That's the number one guy, I should say, that I would give up a little bit more because he is the perfect guy to come into this team. But someone in that vein, like a 3-and-D big athletic wing to not only fill a need, but also is a little bit of an insurance policy against some of the guys that you have that, have experienced quite a few injuries the last few years.
I don't know. Do you think after the other night, Dallas might be willing to move Najee Marshall because he got suspended?
I don't want to say your guy on the Cavs.
You don't want a good Xavier guy on the Cavs?
No, like I mean, honestly, I envision somebody like the Sixers aren't going to trade him, but like Caleb Martin or somebody like sure. That's the kind of guy I want. I don't want somebody that's going to come in and dominate the ball and throw off any of the vibes on his team. But I don't think any of those guys would. I'm talking about guys who are get most of their shots off catch and shoot threes or cuts to the basket, aren't going to have a large win share or large PER. I think someone like that would fit in perfectly to this Cavs and complement what they're doing and not throw anything off. That said, I understand everything being great, but I'm just somebody. I still look at Boston and I still look at the Knicks and think, who do the Cavs use to guard Jason Tatum and OG Anunoby and guys like this big or the Hawks? We've seen it with the Hawks, right? That's who do they guard if they play the Hawks in the second round or even the first round? Like who do they have guard DeAndre Hunter after he went for like 30 each game we played him? Yeah. I would still love if they got someone in that mold.
Yeah, I agree with Kevin. And you don't have to make a trade, right? I mean, the buyout market is always going to be something that's going to jump out right after the deadline. And this is a team that's taken advantage of the past. I think obviously this year, the good news is there's better options than Marcus Morris. They're going to pop up for that circumstance, though. For some reason, Marcus Morris was pretty good for this team.
He was great when he was on his run here.
I was very shocked by that. But like we've mentioned Larry Nance a lot, and he doesn't play enough in Atlanta. You would think maybe that's a possibility of a move. I think he makes a lot of sense. And I'm also in the market of kind of piggyback what Kevin's saying there as well. Like, yeah, you want to get better, but don't make a move just to make a move, right? Like we talked about, Washington is very, very, very obliviously like, hey, Kyle Kuzma, Jonas Valanciunas, don't go get those guys, especially Jonas Valanciunas. He doesn't run the floor the way that you need a Cavs big to do so. Kyle Kuzma, I don't think is a Cavs fit. I think he's a fit for other teams for sure. Like I think he's a good ball player, but not here. And to even further Kevin's point as far as like guarding Boston, guarding the Knicks. This Orlando Magic team, you need guys who can score because right now, if the season ends today, you're playing them in the second round, and they're pretty great.
I would agree with you guys about needing a wing defender who can, I'll just take a wing defender. We don't really need somebody that can score. Everybody on this team can score. Yeah. Because I'm just looking at the standings right now, if the season ended today, you would have potential matchups against Pistons, Heat, Hawks, Magic, Celtics. I mean, Knicks are in there. All those teams have great wing players like Tatum, OG Anunoby. We've already seen what the Hawks and Heat do with those wing positions. So I agree that something probably needs to happen. I think along the lines of don't make a move just to make a move. It's got to be a right locker room fit, because I think this locker room is such a tight knit group. That's why they're able to play with the confidence that they all have. It's just because they're a completely bought in team right now, and kind of either getting rid of guys to acquire other guys. That you're dabbling in that chemistry, that cohesion that has really set this team apart from other teams this year.
That's nail in the head. I really think that's nail in the head. Just in the sense that, and I think Kobe Altman is really good at that. I think he's really good at getting guys that fit, not just schematically, but personality wise. And I think he really learned a lot from the John Beeline situation where, he hasn't had a bad locker room since then. Let's be honest. I mean, they lost with JB Bickerstaff, and there was these rumors that Mitchell and Garland didn't want to play together, which turned out to be very big rumors. And I mean, the locker room's been great the past, basically since they drafted Mobley in that time frame.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny. Like, if you look in hindsight, everyone's saying that, oh, Mitchell's on his way out. That didn't happen. Garland's going to request a trade. That didn't happen. Mobley and Allen can't play together. That hasn't happened. So it's just, everybody just loves to talk about the Cavs not being able to make it work. And all they've done is proven everybody wrong.
Well, you know why, Skylar? It's because NBA people don't push what's going on the floor. They push narratives. They push this ESPN talking head bull crap that we all hate so very much, and that's why we do the show the way we do it. It's the drama that's more important than the game, and that's the thing where I really appreciate doing shows like this, where it's like, yeah, we can talk about the reports and news and things like that, but we care far more about why did Evan Mobley take 3 threes here, and were they good shots? And I think that's the way this needs to be.
Yeah, I agree. And everybody, I like to get specific with it, right? Because people will say, okay, then who is the right trade or something? You don't want, if you talk in theoreticals, they need this and that, but then the salaries don't match. There's no way that team's going to trade that guy, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Cavs could really use Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
It would be great.
I actually wrote down 5 names that I think are realistic, both from salary perspective and are perfect fits for the Cavs. And whether it's one of these 5 or somebody kind of in that mold. I already mentioned Herb Jones. To me, that's the grand slam. That's the guy I would want. Also from the Pelicans, I would take Trey Murphy in a second.
Oh my God!
And,
yes.
and I'm picking on the Pelicans because they have the worst team in the league. Big possibility of wanting to blow it up, right? Another team that's talking about blowing it up, Sacramento Kings. I'd go make a call about Keegan Murray because his shooting's down this year, but he is the prototypical big guy, big wing, plays really good defense. Historically has been a good offensive player, but been down this year. I think that's another good guy. The one that's been rumored to the Cavs quite a bit, Cam Johnson from the Nets. Everybody knows the Nets are going to unload everybody. I do think he's a great fit. He does make a little bit more money and might be a little bit tougher to make a trade. The Cavs don't really have any restrictions as far as salary cap right now. And then if you're going to go for a little bit lesser guy, like I mentioned, Caleb Martin, I would Cody Martin would be kind of I guess last or the bottom. And I'm not picking on Cody, but that's kind of my Mendoza line. Cody Martin would be the last guy I'd be willing to make a trade to complement this roster. If it's anybody who would contribute less than him, it's not worth it to me. Right. But all 5 of those guys have very similar profiles, have very similar skill sets, very similar size. So those are 5 names that I wrote down that I think would all be just a great compliment to this Cavs roster. And I wouldn't want to do anything else. I'd want to make a move to get one of those guys and then leave the rest of the team as intact as possible.
Yeah, and I think to a lesser extent too, as far as a buyout guy you could potentially look at, depending if his franchise decides to be smart for once. I can't imagine
Bulls take.
I can't imagine Torrey Craig would be hard to get as far as a switchable defender for this team that you can just have come off the bench and play 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, and he's kind of right on that Cody Martin line for me.
Yeah.
If that's a guy, if you could it's almost like a flyer if you get them on the buyout market or like for a second round pick or in 6 years from now or something, and you get them as like a insurance policy almost. Because again, you said injuries happen all the time. And like, hold on, quick. This is one thing I wrote down. We didn't get to on Sunday because we did the longest podcast ever. But the one person or one group of people we haven't shouted out this year for the Cavs success that we should, and people never think of this.
The
What
Cavs
about
frog.
the cat? Well, I was gonna say, we haven't talked about the Cavs frog. That's a great point.
Yeah, why haven't we done that?
But how about the Cavs training staff? Think about the guy. Think about the NBA. The amount of guys that miss games because of injuries or even minor injuries or things like that. Their big four have missed combined like 4 games this year.
Yeah,
they've had some bumps and bruises with guys on the bench. Obviously, Max Strus was out for a bit of the year. Wade missed time. LeVert missed time. But overall, one of the biggest reasons for the Cavs' success is they are as healthy as any team in the NBA. And that is a credit to the players getting conditioning themselves to be healthy. It's a credit to Kenny Atkinson, which we have talked about, and the coaching staff keeping people's minutes down and like keeping, last night they got a great win on the first night of a back-to-back and nobody played more than 27 minutes. That's like exactly how you draw it up, right? But the training staff deserves some credit too, because they this Cavs team has been as healthy as any NBA team I've followed in several years. So I just want to give them a shout out.
Yeah, especially look at those like LeBron days where it's like he's going into the finals with Kyrie Irving's shoulder at his ankle and things like that. So see this is a nice pleasant change.
Yeah. The one other thing I want to say, I wanted to get, I guess, all of us to talk about a little bit was I always like to, I'm willing to be like critical of like, coaches or players when need be. And I luckily haven't had to very much with the Cavs this year, but I have a little bit. The guy I've probably been the most critical of is Dean Wade. And I've always said like Dean contributes in a lot of ways, but his offense has just been bad this year. He's like the only Cav whose offense has been bad. Well, he's finally starting to turn that around. The last 7 games, he's shooting 67% from 3, 12 for 18. He's averaging 7 rebounds a game. He's averaging almost a block a game. His minutes he is probably the number one benefactor from Okoro being out as far as increase in minutes and moving back into the starting lineup. And I think we all speculated about this, when Okoro went down, who do we move back into the starting lineup? And I think I said, and I win one every now and again. I usually don't, but I think maybe they put Dean Wade back in because they know they need him to get going, and he was at his best when he was a starter, and maybe that will get him going again. And so I didn't want to call him out because I think these last 7 games or so has been his best stretch of the season.
Completely agree, man. And it's been so awesome to see because this team has really needed his step up.
Yeah, I'd like to get into deeper conversations about Dean Wade, especially maybe as we get closer to the trade deadline. But before we go into that rabbit hole, let's turn the page and look at tonight's game against the Lakers, against the 40-year-old LeBron James. Guys, what are you hoping to see from this game? What are your takes? Let's hear them. Tim, we'll start with you.
Well, unfortunately, the Lakers got more athletic this weekend. Yep. And that was, it's great for them and happy for them to expand LeBron's chances at, winning a playoff series. I still think Cleveland's the better team, obviously. I am genuinely curious on the Lakers side how these two guys shape in, because everyone's talking about Dorian Finney-Smith, and it's a great pickup. Getting Shake Milton is such an underrated move in this trade. I mean, just getting an additional ball handling playmaker that they didn't have off the bench because D'Lo is just not that anymore was so huge for them. So I'm really genuinely curious what they look like, because JJ Redick's already said that he's going to keep his starting 5 the same. So Rui, LeBron, AD, Reeves, so on and so forth. So, but Kevin kind of hit the nail on the head earlier. This is the second game of back-to-back. Our guys played maximum 28 minutes last night. You feel pretty good about that. You feel pretty good going into this game that they're still pretty refreshed and don't have to put too much tax on them. So I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. Obviously, the last time these teams played earlier in the season, it was a lot of Cleveland just kind of exposing the Lakers' inability in transition defense. I do think that got better with this trade that they made. but how long does that take to go into effect? So if you're Cleveland, you probably think you can do a little bit more of the same as they're still getting these guys into the Lakers system.
Yeah. So my thoughts of this game is in the NBA what you call a schedule loss, right? A scheduled loss because the Cavs are in the middle of a West Coast trip. They played Friday night in Denver's altitude. They played last night against Golden State. Now they have to play a second game of back-to-back against the Lakers, who the Lakers have been at home for a week, and they've only played one game since that Christmas Day thing. So this is what in the NBA say sometimes the other team beats you, sometimes the schedule does. So to me, that's what this would be. But this for a normal team, but this Cavs team is not a normal team. This has happened. I think there's the only schedule loss that I think they succumbed to this year was that Miami Heat game right before the NBA Cup break. Other than that, when these scenarios have occurred, they have risen to the challenge and kind of defied the odds a little bit because it is defying odds to win your, eighth game. If this would be their eighth game in a row, it'd be the third straight game on their West Coast trip of winning in 3 games in 5 days on that trip. So my thought is I'm not heartbroken if they do lose this game because I think the NBA kind of set them up to lose this game.
Yeah.
But earlier in the year, I would kind of have expected a loss. And now after seeing almost a half season of this Cavs team, I still expect them to win despite kind of this, schedule being stacked against them.
Yeah, I think no matter what, the way you look at this trip here, and it's something Kevin talked about a lot as we were getting ready for it, and we had that conversation about just kind of the scheduled loss and the things like that. No matter what happens tonight, this road trip's a victory. I mean,
sure.
Nail on. I mean, just dominant, impressive. No matter what happens tonight in Dallas later in the week, this is a win of a road trip for this team.
Yeah, I think this team is such an Iron Man team in the sense of they thrive the more that they play. It seems like whenever they take extended breaks, that's when the rust starts to build. Probably a little quicker than we would like. I think they genuinely just like to play. So I expect to win just because they've shown us time and time again, especially the first win streak was, God, we were on every single night, it felt like. So I expect them to
got sick of seeing each other.
I expect them to keep the momentum rolling. I don't know if it'll be an absolute dominant blowout like the last time that we saw the Lakers. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it is.
So you're saying that there's a possibility we see Bronny in this game again? I mean, he's playing hot in the G-League right now.
Warm welcome he got in Cleveland, though.
Well, and we should mention again, not just the schedule. I don't want to take anything away from the Lakers or anything. The Lakers have won 5 of the last 6.
They've been great.
Did just make a trade to get a better team. They still have LeBron, even at 40 years old, is playing as an all-star. They have AD, who's one of the best big men in the world. So again, this isn't like a shameful loss.
And Austin Reeves is better.
Yeah.
Got better.
No, Austin Reeves has been playing fantastic. I think he might
put a headband on, and he's like,
yeah. And so, I think this is a big challenge tonight because of both the opponent and the situation with the schedule and the travel and everything. But again, the Cavs have risen to these challenges so many times this year to the tune of so when you talk about the Cavs overall this year, I think this is a perfect representation of how good the Cavs have been. Just a very simple thing. Record by month. Like October 5-0, November 12-3, December 11-1. Like what happened in November?
The Hawks.
The Hawks. That is what happened. You're right.
Yeah.
But in all, and it's just to say that's one of the things we've talked about so much, the consistency of this team and being able to kind of just play a great game virtually every night. And to Tim's point, like not only the West Coast trip, December's a win. 11-2 is an amazing month, and they have a chance to be 12-1 instead. So the Cavs, they're playing with house money in tonight's game. I still wouldn't bet against them, but I do think it'd be a challenge.
Should we do our first bet on the podcast since we're recording the day of the game?
I was gonna say the Cavs are actually favored in this game.
That's
I have a hard
betting-wise,
time
for sure.
thinking they won't be favored in many games the rest of the year.
Yeah, like at OKC, they won't be favored. Maybe at Boston, but most other stuff right now, like they would be favored pretty much again in any game, home or away.
Yeah. Trying to look at real quick any fun prop bets, any player combos I like.
Yeah, the Cavs are 4.5-point favorites tonight.
Yeah.
How
How are we feeling about Garland, 29.5
Yeah.
points, rebounds, assists, minus 125?
I was gonna say a Garland prop is where my head would go in this game because he's probably the worst matchup for the Lakers. Not that the Cavs are a bad matchup for anybody, but if you're talking about individual players, they don't have any short, quick guards that could guard Garland. Like Mitchell really either, but like my head went to Garland.
Yeah, so I took it. I did it. I did it. Darius Garland over 29.5 points, rebound, assists, minus 125. And I'm just basically going off the base that he had a really good game last night and didn't play a ton of minutes. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, get your bets in, guys. Excited for tonight's game. With that, I think we're good to wrap up. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, I'm Skylar Webker with Tim Daniels, Kevin Lynch, and who has sound us off?
Go Cavs! Yeah, you do it.
Go
It's your
Cavs,
turn.
guys. We'll see ya.